Hello and welcome to Crop Roadshow. In this series, you'll discuss the history of three or more crop cultivars, starting with the history of the crop itself. Then I'll rank them for agronomic traits, which will be out of 3, disease resistance traits, which will be ranked out of 2, 1 for each major disease, and 2 points for historical breeding use and future breeding use. Let's begin. Now on to our first cultivar, Worcester Pearmain, with a pronounced strawberry flavor. It is an open pollinated seedling of another old-timey early apple called Devonshire Quarrenden, and was raised into existence in the 1870s in Worcester, England. It was named by Richard Smith, the owner of St. John's Nursery, in 1874. It received a certificate of first class of the Royal Horticultural Society in 1875. Now on to the traits. Let's start with disease resistance, since this is a complicated one. The cultivar itself is resistant to nothing, except for mildew. But when combined with Cox orange pippin or something with Cox orange pippin in its parentage, it seems to create a resistant progeny to scab. I have looked at the descriptions of other apples that are hybrids between Worcester Pearmain and something else, and found that scab resistance manifests when these two are crossbred but nowhere else. I recommend you do that as well. Links are in the description. Winston, for instance, is a crossbreed between Cox orange pippin and Worcester Pearmain. Neither of them are resistant to scab, but combined they become resistant. Same thing goes for James Grieve, crossbred with Worcester Pearmain. James Grieve is a crossbreed between pot seedling and Cox orange pippin. When crossbred with Worcester Pearmain, you get a scab-resistant apple. The process where two genes that are compatible with each other combining to create a new trait is commonly referred to as epistasis. So I speculate this may be a case of this, but this is just speculation on my part. Regardless, at least when crossbred with something related to Cox orange pippin, i.e. Cox orange pippin and its immediate progeny, and perhaps some other apples with similar genetics, although again, speculation, it does seem to add scab resistance into the mix. For this reason, I give it a 0.5 out of 2. In terms of storage, I've seen mixed hypotheses on that front. Palmiferous that can store for 2 months, others that can only store for 1 month. But given that's the nature of early apples, with many early apples having short shelf lives, I cannot in good conscience reduce the ranking based on that. Considering its vigor and ability to crop annually, I would give this a 3 out of 3 for agronomic traits, especially for its strawberry flavor, a unique trait in apples. The next apple on our list would be Adams Pearmain. Is the apple that has the red coloration of a modern apple, but the flavor profile of a russet, aromatic tart, as well as nutty and sweet. All has a very dry texture as well. The cultivar was first presented and documented in 1826 as the Norfolk pippin before being renamed Adams Pearmain. It is likely existed prior to that at an indeterminate time long ago as the hanging Pearmain, with no knowledge or history of this cultivar's parentage. Now on to the traits. Based on the work by Kahn's lab, Adams Pearmain is moderately resistant to fire blight. It's also listed by the Royal Horticultural Society as being resistant to scab. So taking that for what it is, I give it a 2 of 2 for disease resistance, at least tentatively. In terms of historical breeding, there is none, so 0 out of 2 for that. For agronomic traits, it can store up to 3 months in a regular cool room, which is one of the reasons why it was popular in Victorian England. There's no indication that it biannual bears, and the tree itself is decently vigorous, and has been used in both fresh eating, baking, and cider, so for its versatility I give it a 3 out of 3 for agronomic traits, for a total of 5 out of 7. Now on to the final cultivar on our hit list. Rosemary Russet is the last plant on our hit list. Like the other nonpareil type apples, it has a strong sour candy flavor to it. This cultivar doesn't have very much in the way of history written down. It was first documented in 1831 by Hugh Ronald in Middlesex, UK, and that's a sum total of this history of this plant. Now on to the traits. In Dr. Vincent Buss's work that I mentioned in the last episode, Rosemary Russet ranks 0.35 in terms of susceptibility to fire blight, meaning it's nearly fully resistant to fire blight, like a good chunk of the subline 93 family of apples. It is also listed amongst the RHS group as one of the scab-resistant apples. So for disease resistance, I give it a 2 out of 2. In terms of historical breeding, there is none, 0 out of 2. In terms of agronomic traits, unlike the other russets, there doesn't seem to be any biennial bearing, which is unique amongst russets actually. The fruit stores for 4 months, and has a unique flavor to it. 3 out of 3 for a total of 5 out of 7. And that concludes our video. Thank you for watching.